Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be doing a brief stock analysis for Carnival Cruise Lines, and just to let you know up front, this is not going to be any kind of deep dive into their financials, but more so me just giving my opinion on the company as well as the industry. I like to start off by taking a look at the 5-year chart just to get a longer term growth perspective, but in this case it's not too telling just because the stock got hammered since March, and it's actually at a level right now that the stock had not seen in the last 5 years. And what's actually pretty crazy is you have to go back to 1996 to see the stock at this current share price, which is not something you see every day. What's a little bit more useful is looking at their year-to-date chart here on Yahoo Finance. As you can see, it was at about $52 at their previous high, and then it plummeted in March when the overall market was down to a little below $8. So if you got in anywhere close to that $8, you're already seeing a really fantastic return. The stock climbed back up to $20 or so in June and then has stayed relatively steady around $15 ever since. And if you look at our financials, if you look at year over year before 2020, they actually look really, really good. You see a really drastic increase in revenues year over year for this already well-established company, as well as a slight tick up in earnings year over year. And then if you look at revenue and earnings, it's a different story. In quarter one of 2020, you already see negative earnings just because COVID really started to hit at the end of quarter one of 2020. And then they were only able to operate their cruises for probably 2 or 3 weeks at the beginning of quarter two, 2020, and not even in every market. And then in quarter three of 2020, they really made no revenue whatsoever. A lot of companies that were seriously affected by COVID had negative earnings, but very few were actually not able to make any revenue like the different cruise lines. And it's going to be the exact same story for quarter four, and we're not going to start to see some revenue and a little bit of earnings return until quarter one of 2021. And then something pretty worrying to me happened just a little over a month ago. I think September 19th is when the news came out that they were selling 19 ships. And this is not necessarily just 18 ships that they were selling for revenue that they desperately needed. These were ships that are already really old. They weren't selling any of their top of the line new ships. They actually still have new ships in development, but these are ships that were going to be retired soon anyway. And since they were also older ships, this is also going to save them on fuel costs and maintenance for several years to come. And next up, I want to talk about a few points by the Bulls and the Bears by analysts at Morningstar. The first point is not a good positive point. It's that if COVID recedes quickly, when a vaccine is approved, travel can resume. And I think we've kind of already seen that it's not going to recede quickly, and there's already a lot of talk of a second wave of this coming. So I think it's at very best case scenario that a vaccine is available in 2 months from now, which is not great for Carnival. And then the next point is that low fuel prices could help benefit their cost structure, which is definitely good. Gas prices bottomed out around 4 or 5 months ago, and Carnival's still seeing the effects of that even today, which is definitely good for them. But I could also argue how much fuel are they actually having to buy right now. And then the last point is that the AP market is very promising for them once they're able to open and operate again. And this emerging market could potentially be the biggest market for cruise lines in just a few years. And there's also a few bearish points I want to talk about for Carnival. The first one is talking about something a little bit more specific, but I just wanted to point out that the media has generally been really negative when it comes to talking about cruise lines, which is really hurting their image and could have longer term repercussions. And a decrease in new cruisers because they have a bad brand and image from the media will eventually lead to fewer repeat cruisers and just lower amount of cruisers overall, hurting their revenue. And then the next point is kind of the opposite, which I talked about for the bullish points, that higher commodity prices and energy could affect profitability, as there may be new guidelines coming out for higher energy prices. And then the last point I already kind of talked about as well, it's that COVID headwinds could persist a lot longer than expected, and extended no sale orders could further pressure profits. So I think the general consensus among the cruise lines is to start operating again in January, but I could easily see that getting pushed to March if there is even a small second wave of COVID. And then I also wanted to touch on their research report overview. They gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, which is definitely fair. They don't have any economic moat, which I don't necessarily know if that's fair. They do have the largest fleet of cruises, and as well as a very well-established brand, which should count for something. Fair value of $20. They were actually in the best financial standing with the best balance sheet before COVID happened. So I think that's partially why they're given such a high fair value compared to their current price. Uncertainty is very high. That kind of goes along with all that I've talked about with COVID. And then stewardship is poor. I was actually a little bit surprised about this just because I haven't heard much about their stewardship. I think it's because their CEO is also chairman of the board, which is generally frowned upon. And I don't think they've liked how top management has handled debt, which is why they were given a poor rating, but overall still given a 4 out of 5 stars, probably 5 stars if it wasn't due to stewardship. I make a ton of other brief stock analysis videos very similar to this one, so be sure to come and check those out if you did enjoy the video. Subscribe for more content, and thank you so much for watching.